Hustle, hustle, hustle. Get to the show as fast as you can. This is going to be a great one today. Right off the jump, folks, right off the jump. I just want to say thank you to I'm going to screen here. I'm going to say thank you to everyone who has reached out to us in the wake of the tragedy and the school shooting yesterday. I want to just say thank you for all the folks who have been checking on us, who have been praying for us, praying for our city, praying for the good of Nashville. And just from the jump, I want to say that we are well. We did not have any students or our kids that were involved in that yesterday, but continue to pray for our city. I didn't want to change the episode today because I wanted Andrew to come on today. He'd already been scheduled prior to this, but I am going to deal with that situation tomorrow on the Erskin Music Show. So off the jump, wanted to say thank you guys for your care and your concern, and we'll get back to some substantive news about that. All right, almost feel like I should start over again, but I won't. Here it is. We're live streaming. All right. Andrew Brooks Greer, not to be confused with Andrew Greer. Andrew Brooks Greer is renowned in the Christian music industry for his multiple recording projects, both his solo projects and projects that he has done with other renowned artists. I can't even name them all because we would run out of time on this show, and it would be such a boring show because I would just be doing all this biographical information. But he's an author, a speaker, an influencer, and more. As he comes to the show today, he comes fresh off of his New York Times #1 release of Bellsburg, the Songs of Rich Mullins. You do not want to miss today's episode of the Erskin Music Show. You don't want to miss it. So tell all your friends, tell people, hey, there's something going on here today. The comment section is turned on, and we are ready to go. All right, I'm going to kind of speed up the first part of this show because I need to get my guest on at about the 9 o'clock hour. So if you're watching us in the Central Time Zone, it'll be 9 o'clock for you, 10 o'clock for those in the Eastern Time Zone. And from wherever you're watching and whomever you're watching with, I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because those are all important things for the audience that we have. We're amassing a worldwide audience. And as I'm watching the numbers of the show grow, it was at 400. And then it was at 5. And then when it was at 6, 7, 8, 9, we hadn't got to 1,000 yet, but we will get to 1,000. We're about to crack that barrier. And so it's a festive occasion always. And I'm thinking, what do I need to do next on this show? I could give you guys all the biographical information, but I think what I want to do is, let you guys know, just for quality assurance and quality control, Dolphins are fine today. And we are ready to roll today. So let me do this. Let me just jump to our devotion because I want to save some time for our guest today. I don't want to shortchange our guest at all. You are going to want to hear from Andrew Brooks Greer. It's going to be good today. So let me get to our devotion. So let's have a word of prayer, and then we will jump to it we'll be in our Bibles in Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 3, talking about justice today and God's careful administration of care for us. All right, Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to do this show, what it means in terms of our lives, how you watch over our lives, how you encourage us in the pursuit of righteousness. And so be glorified in all that we do and or say. All right, Luke chapter 18, grab your Bibles. This morning, do a little quick Bible study, quick devotion, and then we will be into it today. In Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 3, we read these words, and I believe this is from the NIV version. I've got Christian Standard Version right here. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, in a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. He had no respect, in other translations, no respect for people. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with a plea, grant me justice against my adversary. Grant me justice against my adversary. This devotion comes from dailydevotion.com, and it goes on to read, and I will let you know when I'm freestyling, but it reads, parents teach their children to be careful and not to touch a flame or a hot stove, to look both ways when crossing the street, and so on. We want children to be safe and protected, but if a child disobeys and gets hurt, do we refuse to comfort them? Of course not. Israel cried out to the Lord because they had failed to listen and were suffering again. God heard their cry and sent a spirit-empowered Savior to treat their distress. In truth, though Israel didn't need saving from the king who was oppressing them, they needed saving from their own wayward tendency to flirt with trouble. And this is something that was interesting. I was talking about this on Sunday. I was doing a message called "Why Jesus," and I was talking about the Jews, and hear this in the heart and the spirit of the way that it's given. But the Jews, even recorded in the Bible, are stiff-necked and disobedient people. That persistence in the desire to resist and rebel against the law of God and rebel against the person and work of Jesus puts Jews in the category of needing a savior and needing salvation. And so I was talking about world religions, and I was talking about different ways that people attempt to get to God. And though the Jews have the true God, the Jews don't have salvation because they don't have Christ. So far as they jettison and position themselves against Christ or away from Christ, the Jews are in need of our prayer and salvation. So him talking about this in this devotion and who the him is, saw his name. I was going through several devotions this morning, but it is a him. As he's talking about this in the devotion, he's essentially going through the history of Israel. And I know a lot of Jews don't like it when Paul is standing before Felix, and in a couple of times in the book of Acts is giving the history of Israel and talking about how stiff-necked and obstinate they were. If you're Jewish this morning and this is your history, own it, because that's the only way that you're going to come to the end of yourself and your need for Jesus and who Jesus truly is and what he represents. So in their devotion, they go on to say it like this: it's fair to ask God to be just with an unrighteous neighbor or someone who mocks our faith. But what if we ourselves are the instigators of our own hurt? What if our behavior lands us in a terrible distress? Will we, with equal fervor, insist that God be as just with us as he is with unrighteous neighbors? You guys know the answer to that question. The Dolphins know the answer to that question. No, we don't. We want justice. Justice to roll down like a mighty river when it comes to other people. But if we were to look in the mirror or look in the camera, I have my camera flipped backwards, so I'm looking literally at myself in the camera. If we were to look in the camera at ourselves, we would not have that same energy when it comes to that guy right there. That's pointed directly in my face because my camera's backwards. That guy right there needs to experience the justice because he is the one who has caused the problem. And the message that I was preaching on Sunday was "Why Jesus?" from Romans 5:8. I don't understand Christianity. I understand all these other religions. You have to work, do the good things. You have to do that. You have to go to quietude. You have to be reincarnated. All these other, I can understand those processes to some type of nirvana or salvation, but I don't understand the process that looks at my own self and says, "You, son, are the problem, and you're the one that is so desperately in need of Christ." All right, that's a little different. That's a little different if I'm the one that's the problem. But God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. It was good. When we ask, and this is back to the devotion, when we ask God to rescue us from distress, it's good to know who did us wrong, especially if we're the cause of our own misery. The good news, and here's where the good news is, Dolphins. Help me out today. The good news is that God hears all the cries of his people. Jesus rescues from misery all who call on him, and we need to ask him to help us to see when we are the cause of our own suffering and then go on to confess it. It ends with a prayer before we finish this off. It says, "Father, by the power of your will, and the Son and your Spirit, keep me from bringing trouble into my own life. Help me to live faithfully for you. In Jesus' name, amen." Gospel choir, help us out.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
All right. That is our devotion for today, our daily devotion. Um, Quiet meditation and prayer. All right. Thanks, guy. All right. So we're back at the Erskin Music Show, and I'm going to hit you up with some Erskin music here. We're already into 10 minutes here. So we better speed this thing up so we have time for our guest today, Andrew Brooks Greer. Not just Andrew Greer, not just some rando Andrew Greer, because that's some very common names right there. Andrew Brooks Greer is coming on the show today, and you will not want to miss that. But before we do that, I feel like you guys haven't heard this song in a while, or maybe I just wanted to play it. The song is called Be Brave. I think it's maybe the TV track, so I'm maybe singing along to the song. You never know. Be brave. Here we go. Erskin Music Show. You can sing along because we're about to hit that drop. Come on. One. So that may have been the version that you could sing along with because it had the lyrics on the screen up there and the opportunity for you guys to join along as you were going along. All right, let me get a couple of these tags out of the way because we are right on schedule this morning. All right, so any disclaimer for copyright information that's been used should fall squarely under the 1976 Copyright Act of Section 107, which is fair use. That is the clause that gives purposes of criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, and scholarship to the show. A couple other things. if you're watching this on YouTube, keep doing that. Keep that energy. If you're watching it on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, or LinkedIn, that LinkedIn audience is growing. And once we get to a certain threshold there, we will introduce that platform as well. And it will be, well, fireworks and so on. All right, one of the quick thing for those of you who've already subscribed, you already did this, and that's why you're watching this show now. You see what happens when you follow instructions? Kind of like your third grade teacher. Good things happen when you follow instructions. When you get out of the line and you beat people up and do all these bad things happen. You have to go to the principal's office, get a spanking. But no spankings on this show. Just remember to do this. All right. So we are rocking and rolling, and we are keeping it going here this morning. We are about 2 to 3 minutes, I think, from getting our guest all lined up here. And so Lydia is going to come on, give you a special announcement today, and we are about ready to start.
Hey, if you're a Christian songwriter, there's a great opportunity coming up the weekend of May 5th through the 7th in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the Create Songwriter Retreat. It will be hosted by yours truly, as well as Erskin and Vitarte, and featuring keynote speaker David Delgado. We are going to be doing co-writes and collaborating with other writers. We're going to be talking about artist development and getting insight and personal advice for your music career. This is going to be amazing. We're going to be recording demos of the songs that we write in the studio together, and this is just so valuable. We need each other. We need community. So if you're looking for co-writers, for collaborators, for encouragement in your craft and in your career, check out the Create Songwriter Retreat coming up May 5th through the 7th in Nashville, Tennessee. You do not want to miss this. So apply today to get more information. Would love to see you there.
All right. Thanks, Lydia. Thank you, Lydia. That's what you do with busy people. You just go ahead and pre-record them. And speaking of pre-recording, there's a devotion that I'm going to be using, I know later on this week, but then also some other devotions that we're going to be using where there are people who literally are just video recording themselves. They're going to come in as the devotional element, and then they'll track along with the show because we can't always get everybody here at 8:45 Central Standard Time. And so for those of you who I'm contacted with devotions, just go ahead and send those things in, and you will be part of the show, even though you may not necessarily be on the show at a particular time. And so we are efforting, and I think we are about ready to bring Andrew on. I got to get the doorbell. Find your door.
Oh,
this man is at the door. He's in now.
I'm here.
You're in.
I'm so glad. Thanks for letting me be in, Erskin.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm good. This is, you were just saying not everyone can be available at 8:45 a.m. or whatever Central Standard Time. My mind is not very available, even at 9 a.m., 9:04 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I am present, and I will be as cognizant as possible.
Well, we have like mental calisthenics, because I know that this is a morning show, and when you have a morning show, you have to give people a chance to warm up, and like we do jumping jacks and push-ups and everything. Now we're not doing that because we got microphones in front of us, and so this is kind of a mental warm-up. I've already given an introduction of who you are, and then everybody's poised and anticipating that. But what they don't know is that we're about to do 5 for 5, and you're about to go 5 for 5. Nobody ever misses anything on this, but you're about to go 5 for 5. Your mind will be warmed up, and then we will be ready to go. So I'm going to mention 5 things. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 things. And you just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind as you hear the topic and or the word, and we'll go 5 for 5. So 1 for 1. Here we go.
Okay. All right.
You ready for this? Here we go. March Madness.
Basketball. That's not what I'm supposed to do.
Great job. He's 1 for 1. With do you follow any of the brackets, or did you do any brackets?
I mean, very loosely. I did not gamble any money this year.
Well, that's good. He's a man who's thrifty. We learned this about him already. Now, is there a team that you normally cheer for?
No, actually, basketball is my least favorite sport.
All right. Good talk.
Yeah, baseball is my sport.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, we should have gone that direction because it's spring.
No, it's okay.
And we're right there at the crux of the season. It's about to begin.
Yeah. Couple weeks.
So if it was baseball, Who would it be in baseball?
Yeah, it'd be Texas Rangers. I grew up in Texas, and so I grew up probably an hour from the ballpark. And I don't know what that sound means. I don't know if that's like a gong show thing or if it's
That's
like a
good. That's
yay.
good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Rangers. And so I was growing up in the '90s when George W. Bush was governor for a lot of that, and he
The
had a
Ryan
lot of roles
Express, baby.
in. Right, exactly. I met Nolan Ryan a few times because I got some kind of an elementary school or like fifth or sixth grade. I got some kind of award. I don't know if it's for academics or some kind of test we took or something. And we went to this banquet, and I think it was in Dallas, which was a long way from where I grew up in a little small town. And Nolan Ryan was the speaker, and we got to meet him and all that kind of stuff.
No,
And
look at you.
and that was in
Look
his
at,
prime. Or well, not his prime. That was like his second or third or fourth or fifth prime. But it
yeah, I
was
was
the
gonna say he
last
had some
iteration.
longevity.
He did, yeah.
He had some longevity. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Hey, we'll keep going. We'll keep going.
Okay.
Number 2, since you've already gone 1 for 1, and you added like 3 or 4 of the things to that, so it's like,
Oh, okay.
that's great. Number 2, spaghetti. Go.
Meatballs.
Mmm.
Not was Italian.
Yeah. So
Oh.
the reason why
So
I
there's
put
an
that,
actual answer.
well, that was your answer. Whatever your answer
Okay.
is, it's going to be right today. All right. So the reason why I put that one on there is because I was watching some of your dinner conversations that you have,
Uh-huh.
and there was spaghetti there, and clearly nobody was eating the spaghetti,
Yeah.
but it was one of those situations where even if you were like being filmed eating spaghetti,
Uh-huh.
it's such a sloppy process there that it's
I would
difficult.
say it's the worst idea. It's the worst idea for a filmed production.
It's
So
the
I'm not
worst
sure.
idea.
Right. So maybe to ask me again, say spaghetti.
Spaghetti,
The worst idea.
the worst idea.
There you go.
Obviously, the worst idea. I was on a podcast a few years ago, and it was one of those we're going to eat and we're going to talk kind of things. And I was kind of relatively new to the sport, and I actually started eating while I was on the thing. And so at the end of the podcast, they said, no one has ever really eaten the food that was in front of them. And I thought, oh, I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I thought that was the purpose of having food in front of me. And they were like, no, it kind of messes up the audio. And I was like, duly noted.
Now I will, for the record, I will say Mark and I eat everything. So
As you
let
should.
the guests talk. Yeah,
As you should. Why put food in front of a man if he can't eat it?
that's right. That's exactly right.
Awesome. Number 3, miniature dogs.
Dachshund.
Mm.
What was it
Wiener
supposed
dogs.
to be? What was it
Deutsch
supposed to be?
dachshunds. I love dachshunds. Well, I'll say I like dachshunds. I don't love dachshunds. I don't necessarily love miniature dogs. Last week, well, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago now, we were in Pennsylvania, and the hotel that we were staying at, they had a dog convention. I don't know if they had the dog convention at the hotel, but certainly somewhere in the city, there was a dog convention. And so all of the dog handlers were there, miniature dogs, big dogs. And it was cool because like people who go to those kind of shows, they have a lot of money and they've well taken care of very disciplined animals.
Mhm.
But it was just strange to be in a hotel where every room, practically except for ours, was a dog and a lot of miniature dogs. And so there you go.
Yes, but dogs are a wonderful thing. I mean, in moderation.
You get extra points for that. We love dogs on the show. We hate cats. All right. Another one. This is 4.
Agreed.
New York City. New York City. Go.
Big Apple.
Big Apple. There's no business like show business.
I'm
And
not
I
a
saw
huge fan
you
of
up
it, to
there
be
doing some
honest.
interviews. You've been up there a few times doing some things, and
Yes.
New York
Yes.
Times loves you. Got a bestseller, and
Well, we were up there twice for at least in regards to dinner conversations. Yes, we were up there one time. We were on the Today Show and then filmed with Kathy Lee, who was on the Today Show at the time. She and
Mhm.
Hoda, and then which was really really cool. That part of her contract, I think this is my understanding, is that she was ready to be done before she actually retired from it. But they kind of enticed her back, and one of the things they enticed her with is that she could use the studios after the show to host her, or to host her own people, her own media people, her own interviews,
Oh, cool.
whatever, that she could invite them in so that she could do that. And largely, all of those were largely faith-based outlets and stuff, which I think is really interesting. So, but the crew, we showed up with our crew. Of course, we were on the show, and then we filmed dinner conversations afterwards, and we expected everyone to kind of like just leave us be, in the sense of not wanting anything to do with this. And that Today Show crew were some of the kindest people. They stuck around for the whole thing. They offered some extra lighting, and they
Oh,
totally
wow.
just linked arms with our people. And another fun story, which goes with dogs, is I ended up in a dressing room with Glenn Close. Of course, Glenn Close, for the younger audiences, is like
Oh,
101 Dalmatians and all that stuff. Right. You're talking about like an era of movie stars that's kind of gone, right? Like that poise and a little bit of that distance and that aura and that class and stuff. And of course, she was carrying a dog the entire time. But she just walks by me in the dressing room, and she didn't know, of course, who I am or anything. She's like, hello. And then she, goes on and with her dog in tow the whole time, does like 5 interviews in our dressing room. And I'm just sitting there listening to Glenn Close give up her life story in front of me. So anyway, it's another world. It's not our world.
do you think? Oh man, I should have done this one. We're gonna have to go back. How do we
Okay.
do this? We gotta go back. This never happens, but we're going back in time. So,
Okay.
would you ever envision, or what comes to your mind when you see a man with a little carrying case and a miniature dog in it?
A wife is what comes to mind. Uh, I I'm not a small dog lover, so in general, it doesn't jive with me. But I like a golden retriever is the only dog I really love. To be honest, I think retrievers are amazing. I,
Mm,
fo- I follow them on Instagram. I do not have one because I don't think you need to have a dog. You just need to allow dogs to be a part of the world, but not in your bed. So so
definitely.
I have no judgment on any dogs. I have known some men who love, love, love small dogs, but almost always that has been influenced by the relationship in their life.
That's fair. That's
So
fair.
I could learn to love I could learn to love a small dog if I loved someone enough.
4 for 4. Let's go 5 for 5. Last one. Suntan lotion. Go.
Banana boat.
Banana boat. Explain.
That's what we used to always use when I used to. We were out on in the summers. We were on the boat every day, and we were a big skiing family. And banana
Okay.
boat was the jam. And even though it was me and all my
Is that a
brothers,
brand?
yes, and it's a brand that, yes, Erskine. Let me educate you real quick.
Okay,
So
because I was gonna
banana
say
boat.
a black
I
man in
forget.
America, you might
I
be
forget.
educating a lot of black people in America about the brands of suntan lotion because for obvious reasons, I'm not
Yes.
a aficionado on suntan lotion.
I forget my context sometimes. See,
Yeah,
we're all the
the
same,
context
but we're
matters.
not. And so banana boat is, I don't know if it's a popular brand anymore because now I don't do this kind, I don't submit myself to the sun as much as I used to. But banana boat would not only protect, was not only a sunscreen, it was also a enhancer, like a tan enhancer. So guys and girls and everything, when we were younger and growing up and on the lakes and stuff like that, it still was like, a source of pride to have bronzed skin, when you got out there on the water. So banana boat provided both opportunities. Your parents were happy, you were happy.
I love it. I love it. 5
You
for
don't need
5.
banana boat.
5 for 5. You did it. There's fireworks for that on this show.
Okay, well, it's the
We'll
game
get
I
to
hate
those.
the most.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Let me give you your. All right. Let's get to the actual interview this morning. You, sir, are the acclaimed artist that we are looking at here and thinking about here.
Oh Lord.
You are the Andrew Greer who
Yes,
has
there's
done
all
all of
the.
these different things. Cindy Morgan performed original songs, former president, first lady, K-Love, On Demand, Empty Stage, Tasha Layton, CCM cast, Rich Mullins album, You and Mark. And I'm sure that show is hilarious because that dude, he's all over the
He's
place.
Yep.
Patsy Claremont. Like, I mean, just go through this thing. Like, you do you ever sleep? I should ask you that question.
Well, there was a time. I love my slumber actually, and as I'm getting older, I turned 40 this year, and I'm realizing my body
Practically in the
needs
grave.
more. Yeah, halfway, and my body needs more to be able to support more. You know what I mean? So yes, I'm definitely feeling like my threshold is lowering, but in a way that is I'm trying to. Uh, make peace with because I think it's helping me embody more peaceful things. I need more time to be able to read or to go on longer walks or to actually go, to the gym today or, actually eating better foods, all the kind of things, elements that are important to a healthy life in general.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
some point, we just find we can't do without those healthy elements being a part of our lifestyle. Or I think we turn into people with ulcers. I have a lot of, especially men friends who, as they got into their 40s, they're still going at the pace that they went in their 20s. And their anxiety levels, which I've experienced this, and are producing health problems. And it's not that they're not healthy individuals if they found a way to culture their life so that it wasn't constant, which just it's
Right.
just more than our mind was. I don't think it's how we were designed to interact with the world. We feel a sense of urgency for various reasons. I think we're insecure, so we try to produce more. So we
Mm,
haven't dealt with our, we haven't dealt with our inner life, and this that's especially for men, but I think women too. I think some of my close female friends who are mothers and wives and professionals and all that. I mean, I cannot imagine being a the primary child rearer in a home and also a full-time professional, right? So that produces its own anxiety and stress. But
sure.
it seems like I don't want to get categorical or anything because it's not true. We all have a bit of all of it, but men, it seems to be this urgency to provide, but then that skews into this element to produce and succeed at all costs. And then
Hmm.
and my women friends, it's a lot of comparison, and I think all of us have elements of comparison. All of us have elements for needs to provide, so it's in all of us. But that's what I've seen more stereotypically. All of that produces the same thing, though, right? It produces an unsettled heart, an unsettled spirit.
Hmm.
It's a lack of peace of mind and calm, and in some ways, on a very spiritual level, it's a lack of trust in you know, God. I mean, I haven't really had to press into that. I was talking to my counselor yesterday about how I don't think I've really
This is
had
good. I
to
love this. This is good.
I don't think I've really had to exercise a real kind of almost palpable trust in God as much as I have over the past few months to simply help me not be like so that the vices of me can just settle down, and be replaced by the peace of living with God, and
Yeah,
there's no perfect formula. We're all dynamic people with a lot of nuances and a lot of different circumstances.
sure.
Here in Nashville, we just had, our community had a hearing experience yesterday. There's things like that that will insert themselves into our lives
Hmm.
that are beyond our control, that will create different elements of off kilter. But I'm trying to more and more let my off kilterness, that lean, just kind of fall into some sort of trust process with God, if possible. And it's not
Yeah.
always possible for me.
It's interesting, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush and overreach here, but we did a show this last weekend on maternal death in America. And there are a
Mm,
variety of causes. I'm
mm,
not going to say one size fits all, but if you look at us against other first world nations,
mhm.
we tend to be trending over the last maybe 10 to 15 years, trending higher in maternal death than other nations who are developed nations. And you begin asking the questions of that. And I think one of the things that you invariably get to as one of the causes, not all of the causes, but one of the causes is exactly what you were talking about. In our culture, there's such a drive for either success or in the model of comparison, comparing ourselves against others. So it's go, 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 go. And that has, as you were talking about, health implications and health ramifications upon the body. And certainly it can affect our soul and our well-being in that regard as well. And so it was interesting to have that discussion with my friend who he had had his wife and said, and even the breakdown demographically is typically for
Mm,
Caucasian women, it's mental. health struggles, postpartum depression, and how that impacts um, maternity. In African American cultures, it's diabetes and a lot of health related things that begin to spring up as
Hmm.
not all across the board all the time, but just seeing some of those demographics reminds me of some of the things that you were talking about, that we are on the go and often don't take time to just rest in who God is, rest in just physically rest our bodies, and stop trying to achieve in a manner that is not conducive to where God has placed us at a given time in our lives. And so I remember us having that conversation the last time that we got together. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
you talk about that.
Well,
Yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go.
Go ahead. Mm-mm.
I was just going to say it dovetails into what it is that I wanted to talk about, because the story of success, when you look at all the stuff that you've done, all the stuff that you're doing, continuing on, there's plenty of stories of success. There's been stories of failure. What are some of the things that you have walked through, that you have gone through, that have kind of brought you to where you're at? And I guess you kind of already started talking about that, but if you wanted to share any specific stories, you have the floor, sir.
Sure. Well, one of the classic stories for me, which, and this has maybe repeated itself a couple times in my life, but I did when I was just about a year out of college, and so this was years ago now. But I did find myself with my back against the wall, spiritually, personally, in all kinds of ways, and that was due to the end of a long relationship and a bunch of unexpected variables and that, and I would say for the first time in my life at that point, that was the first time I had experienced true heartbreak, and also had to kind
Mm,
of reckon with myself that I was a feeler. I come from a family where my dad's a therapist and my mom's a classical organist and a music educator, so we have all kinds of feelings up in our family, but largely um, we have a lot of my parents are very practical too, though. They just had really good boundaries and had really have really sound minds. So my brothers and I were raised with the ability to resource that, when we were finding ourselves disappointed or in the middle of a failure or whatever. And so this was the first time I couldn't resource that, and it fairly quickly uh, help my feelings to subside, the element of kind of depression and that can fall on you unexpectedly when certain things happen to you. And so I ended up needing some space. You were talking about space, time to rest.
hmm
And the only way I
Very
knew how to
biblical.
do that was, yes. And the only way I knew how to do that was escape for a hot minute, which sometimes we treat escape as like running away. But I think if you're escaping into something, I was escaping into rest. I was escaping into kind of a big question of like, God, I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm not sure what's going on with you. I'm not sure how real this is or how present you are or if it's really a thing, but I'm going to escape somewhere where I can at least let that play out or let it weigh out, And
Uh-huh.
so I love nature. I love backpacking and hiking, and especially back then did a lot of that. And I went to Wyoming, which I also love the West. The West is just a place. I grew up
Okay.
kind of on the fringes of the West in Texas, real big skies and huge horizons. And that's always spoken to my inside. It's always allowed me to kind of open up inside and
What
let my
part of Texas are you
brain.
from again?
West of Fort Worth, going towards Abilene, real rural
So
area.
Stephenville, where you at?
Oh, well, do you know Weatherford?
Yes, of course I know. Come on, man. I'm from
Out,
Texas.
outside of Weatherford. Outside of Weatherford. Yeah,
Okay.
a
Which
little
which
town.
direction? Like
Well,
Alito,
just west. Well,
Alvarado?
yes. So my parents lived just near Alito. Yeah,
Okay.
and
Yep.
the school system I went to was Azle.
Hazel. Yep. I know exactly where that's at. Yeah, great. Hill country.
Okay. Yeah, right. It's kind of the start or the tail end of it. You go down into Austin, all that, and it gets real pretty. But that, those big skies and those open kind of horizons. And so I went to Wyoming and ended up meeting some people at a lodge there. Anyway, and make a long story short, I was able to kind of work and play out there for several months or more, and that gave me the space. But here's what's interesting is I was already in music and I was in songwriting a little bit, but I was trying to figure all that out. I'd gone to school at Belmont here in Nashville for music, but
Mhm.
there was this old lodge where I met these friends that Buffalo Bill Cody built around 1900, around the turn of the century then, and it had an old upright piano in it, and it was not open to the public. Like people would get little private tours of it or something, but the people who owned it I met, and they said, well, there's a piano in there. They found out I was a musician. Do you want a key to it? You can go in there anytime you want and play. And I was like, okay. But
Oh,
it was
okay.
in the middle. Yeah, it was in the middle of the Shoshone National Forest, and the temperature was up and down. And this was an old cabin. I expected it just to be totally out of tune and unplayable. And I go in there, and that sucker was completely in tune with itself. And when I first sat down and started playing, and then started writing what would become my first kind of foray into music, um, just when I first started pressing my fingers into those keys, there was just an element of knowingness about it. And so
Mm,
I was weighing out this presence of God. Is it possible? Is it real? Is it true? And yet here in the middle of, my escape into nowhere, into no man's land, is the instrument I know the best, in the medium where I know how to express myself the best. I don't know how to say all the right things. I don't really know how to pray a lot of times. I don't know what to pray for. I've got a lot of internal things that are not resolved, and never will be resolved. And so there's a lot of, you know, there's just a lot of unknowing, and a lot of inability to articulate around that unknowing, except when it comes to music. And
hmm.
so to be given the gift of communication when I was broken, heartbroken, was really, really sweet and special. Now, there have been various seasons since then where that has come into play again, through a friend, through a relationship. And so, but largely, I am someone who is not good at letting people take care of me, which is a control thing. I want to be the
Mm.
one who takes care of.
You learned all the stuff about Andrew Brooks Greer.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, don't Google too much. And so, allowing even this kind of mysterious God, to comfort me, like allowing myself to even just be comforted, forget even identifying how or what or how God moves and where God is all the time, just allowing myself to be comforted. That in of itself is opening up in me a channel, I think, for the
Yeah.
spirit to get in.
Well, we could talk about this all day long. We can do whole episodes on this discussion thread. But you do have a comment that came up, and the wonderful folks at Resound Fest. I don't know if you've ever heard of Resound Fest or been at
Hmm.
Resound Fest up in Bethany, Missouri. I'll be there this next year, this summer, coming up in a few months.
Hmm.
And they were wondering if you could come to Resound Fest with me. Now, I need to look squarely into the camera and say, you guys at Resound Fest, you should be ashamed of yourself, because you can afford me to come to Resound Fest. You're not paying me anything. Uh, you can afford me, but you cannot afford this man who is on this screen
Mm,
right down there. You do
that's
not
not
have
true.
the funds to bring this man to bear at Resound Fest. And so you guys are gonna have to up your
Not true, Shane.
negotiations. He can't come for
Yeah,
the same rate that I'm coming for.
I
So
need a
just
couple cases of banana boat.
yeah, you have to work some banana boat up in that thing. Oh, I love it.
I love
I
it. Well,
wanted to ask
Missouri's
you
a
about
wonderful place. Yes.
yeah, I wanted to ask you about some of the projects that you are most excited about, and or a project that you are working on that you are most excited about right now. And we'll kind of land the plane here, maybe part
Hmm.
one of our discussion, but we'll land the plane here. What are you excited about? What are you working on now? What is the thing that is giving you life, joy, excitement, energy? Go.
Yes. It's kind of twofold, but they go together. And one is songwriting has become more into play in my life. It was earlier in my career, and now it's coming back into play, which I've discovered is a really life-giving thing to me, to be in writers' rooms, to co-write with people, to create songs that aren't necessarily meant for me to communicate. I really love that kind of piece of the whole pie. So that's been a beautiful thing. But in relationship to that, I've been writing with Cindy a good bit, actually, for a
You need to
soundtrack
get
to
Cindy up on this
a
thing.
I know you do. Cindy's the best.
She said she'll come on
Um,
at some point. I know she's busy.
Good. She's the best, but you need to have her. Um,
It'll
She'll
happen.
figure it out. Yes. The I have been in film for a few years. This is a newer thing for me, but I just directed and completed producing a documentary about race in the Deep South.
Mm,
Um,
tell me more.
in using the microcosm of a very small town called Plains, Georgia, in deep southwest Georgia. It's kind of the filter to discuss that through. Now, Plains, Georgia is famous for it's the birthplace, home place, and will be the place where they finally lay their heads to rest for President Jimmy Carter and former First Lady Rosalind Carter. And so
Okay.
Plains is Carter country. But it's a very small town that has a very interesting perspective in history because the world has come to Plains. These are very rural people, very folksy people, very typical deep South rural town, very typical black-white issues. Yet they've had the influence of one of the greatest humanitarians in the last 50 years, at least from a Caucasian person, and who has been a part of human rights and has been part of equality, and so his influence in town has also brought the world to them. So it's given them this unique perspective, and so it gives it the color of history. People who are interested in history, people who are interested in presidential history, it gives them that angle. But for
Mhm.
people who are interested in continuing the topic of conversation of race in America, it gives just this really unique, again, this kind of petri dish to explore. There is literally a train track that runs right through the middle. The majority of black citizens live on this side, the majority of white citizens live on that side. A lot of that has to do with history, but it's still true. And so kind
Uh-huh.
of the stories you hear are true, but what I think about it as a metropolitan white guy who's
A
a large part,
suburbanite.
yes, though I live a little rural in Tennessee, but
Okay.
so you gotta give me a little credit. I'm not in Brentwood. The but nothing wrong with those who are in Brentwood. So but
Hey, Brentwood.
all-
Brentwood, if you're
um
watching this, no disrespect whatsoever.
yeah,
We just can't all be
except
up
for
in
that
Brentwood.
bumper sticker that says "Thank Heaven for 37027." I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's terrible. So that's their zip code. Um, so all that to say, I think there's a lot of what I always ask. The question that they have caused me to ask or inspired me to ask is different always divided? Is separate always segregated? Can you live in unity while still having starkly different histories, preferences, whatever? And let's just ask the question. Politically correctness, I'll tell you this, Erskine, doesn't work down there. I've tried. I'm the main interviewer in
Oh,
all
we got
the
to hear more about
conversations.
that.
So so I tried to say, well, don't like for instance, I asked Penny, a black woman in town. I said during one of her formal interviews, I said, "Do you realize there's a train track running through the middle of town, and that most black people live over here, most white people live over here?" And she said, "Yeah, I know that." I said, "Okay, well, what does that imply?" And she said, "What it implies is history." She said, "These folks over here, her white friends," she said, "their great great grandfathers built those houses and their families have owned that since day one. That's legitimately their home. My home over here is the first home. I'm the first person in my long lineage of ancestors here in America that have ever owned a home. I was given by this town and operated to own a home. I would not have had the opportunity when I lived in California. And from that, I raised kids who are lawyers and educators and live all over the country now." She said, "So don't diminish my experience here
Okay.
because you think I should live
Okay.
there."
Gotta
So
listen. We ain't telling you twice.
now, she said, if that house on that side of the track, if you will, goes up for sale, I have the income to buy it and I've got an
Okay.
offer on it,
Come
and
on.
that is refused. Now, that's racism. But us living in different areas that were built at different times based on a historical timeline is not always racism. So it's just kind of interesting because I was like, well, she made me think. She made me think twice.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. There's a
Okay.
nuanced conversation that needs to be had in our culture regarding how we view history and how we attempt to expunge history or expose history or explain history in a way that I think is wholly unproductive. There are some things that are of
Mm,
a historical note that, although we would not subscribe to the foundation or the values that those things represent, is a historical note that we can move beyond. And I love the fact that, as you're telling that story, don't get it twisted. We may have started here,
mhm,
but if we need to own that on the other side, hey, study the Ten Commandments, Constitution. We're gonna study it all. We are here, and that's I love that. I love that mentality. I love that thought because it does bring a certain level of unity where there's people who would say, no, 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 we're always going to exist in the historical planes that we've existed in, and yet
mhm,
as we move beyond that, things change, people grow, People experience new things. There's a new history for a new group of people who are not of a certain age, who are there in that context. And so all of those things are so vitally important. I think that's an important discussion for us as Americans to have, because not everybody can be funneled into, oh, if you're black, you're this, if you're white, you're that. And so in the discussion, there's a lot of nuance to that. And I think you touched on some of that in that discussion. Good stuff.
Well, and with PC stuff, in the name of diversity, we can become really homogenous if we're not careful. If we apply politically correctness to all of diversity, then it loses its dynamic. And so
Mhm.
I love the contrast of I don't love all the history of how human beings have treated each other, but I do
Sure.
love the contrast of human beings in general, meaning that all the different racial histories, all the different. We are all so unique, and so to wipe out that, which includes some of our dynamic and uniqueness, is born great sorrow, incredible trials, incredible oppression. And I'm not saying I wish that had not happened, but it did. And so therefore, where do we grow into? Who do we become? How do we learn? And so to your point, if we get too wonky with history, we'll end up in the same dang place.
Mhm.
We'll
That's
never
well
become
said.
new creatures. We'll never become new creatures.
That's well said. That is well said. We are
That's
moving
my
along a
opinion.
continuum. Yeah.
Right. I thought
No,
you're like,
you're not
"Hey,
going
we're
to get
moving on."
yeah, yeah. All I was
That
saying is we're moving along a continuum that allows us to be able to come together at certain places. We can see where we've
Right.
been apart, but we don't need to keep the discussion in the past where we've been apart. We need to move the discussion forward so that we can figure out ways that we can come together on things with the distinct ethnic qualities that God has given us for the
Mhm.
advancement of the kingdom of God and also for human flourishing. Like, we benefit from one another, and that's a great discussion to have. You can always have that discussion on this show. We
Well,
appreciate that.
if you homogenize us human beings and you homogenize God, so I just think we are a reflection of God in all our distinction and all our character and all our diversity. And to me, God is so much bigger and more beautiful and able if He embodies all this that we see. All the beauty of
Hmm.
the created order, which includes us. At the
Yeah,
top of it.
as I would say, he should be in every part of the discussion as the kingdom of
Right.
God advances. So I won't take up any more of your time today, sir, but I have put some information at the bottom of the screen that is your website. Where else should people go if they want to hear your music, your dinner conversations, all the different projects that
Sure.
you're in? Where should they go? I think this is a good starting place, but what else do we need to know?
Yeah, I think the website's fine, or you could just kind of Google Andrew Greer, and that'll bring up like the YouTube dinner conversation stuff, or it's on Amazon Prime. Or easy thing is just Google what you want, you'll find it. We don't even have to point him anymore, Erskine.
Look, just Google
Just Google.
Andrew Brooks Greer, not the other
Well,
Andrew Greers that are out there.
there is an Andrew Sean Greer, but I'm the Andrew Greer. So
The Andrew Greer. Get it right,
yeah,
people.
yeah, I don't know where Brooks will take you, but you can see. I do like my middle name.
Yeah, that is you're the one. You're the Andrew Brooks, right?
Apparently, I mean that is my middle name.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, brother. And you got some great comments today. And there'll be people watching this all throughout the day because we're in various time zones as people begin waking up around the world, and they will watch this interview. And so I will keep you posted on the comments that people make. Great episode today. Thank you so much for your time
Thank
and
you.
joining the Erskine Music Show. I'm sure I'll see you at the studio or someplace around here,
Soon.
there, somewhere.
Soon. Yes. Thank you,
Soon
Erskine.
and very soon. God bless, sir. You have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
That was Andrew Brooks Greer. Put some respect on his name. And Shane, I'm really looking forward to seeing you this summer, and it's going to be a tremendous time. We'll have a lot of fun together, and I'll take a picture for Andrew Greer, and he'll see us at Resound Fest, enjoying ourselves. Now, for all you guys that are out there, the Erskine Music Show, thank you so much. Those are the kind of conversations and those are the kind of guests that we have on this show. We're efforting. I think I may have already announced it. Season 6. We're efforting, trying to get Point of Grace on. at some point, and then also Cindy Morgan at some point. And so in due time, you guys just keep watching the show. You never know. It's going to just pop up and it'll be like, hey, we are here and we are in charge. And there's a lot of wonderful things. And so all right, we got to go and do some things today. We got to go and be about the kingdom today. And the Lord is going to put somebody in your path today. The Lord is going to put somebody on your mind today. And again, as I close the show out with the tragedy that we had in Nashville, it is not a foregone conclusion that being in Nashville is going to keep us safe, nor being in any city is going to keep us safe. And I was actually, and I'll talk about this tomorrow, I was actually at a debate tournament with my daughter yesterday. And we were in a place that we're not normally at. And so even though we're home educators, my kids are out and about in various schools and in various parts of the culture and society in the city of Nashville. And so with the tragedy that took place, thank you to so many people who have reached out to us, making sure that we're okay, seeing what they can do, seeing how they can be a part of the healing of the city. And I will talk about that tomorrow on the Erskin Music Show. We're out for today. God bless you guys. Come back soon. And let's continue to share Christ.